management in your organization. Today, we're going to focus on prioritizing your roadmap with journey management. That was the title of today. And Kaspar, good to see you. Our CX lead is here with us to make it very practical. We're also going to do a little live session, live Q&A, and this time not at the end, but you can drop your questions, whatever comes up. If you already have one, just do it now. In the Q&A button below, just drop questions, anything you'd like. We're going to co-present, Kaspar and I. So if there's stuff coming up that we'd like to address right away, we will. Maybe give you the mic to answer or clarify things, but we're going to do this together. But of course, we prepped some stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about the prioritization theory, like what are we talking about today? And then we're going to go and show you 8 example cases. We're going to go into TheyDo, showing things, how people actually achieve their goals and how they prioritize. We're going to talk about it at length. We'll have the hour. And if there's any questions or things you want to know, just drop them in the Q&A. We'll be with you. So without further ado, let's get started. But we thought it would be good to just define prioritization one more time before we actually dig in. Familiar territory, the triple diamond, because if we look at how enterprise organizations or large complex organizations prioritize, you basically see 3 stages, right? We want to define the problems right. We want to, and that's the first diamond. We then want to define the right solutions, basically discover what solutions we're going to build and ship. And once we validated those, or we are sure that the experiments are successful, we're going to actually deliver a solution that is available to all our customers or end users. So basically we can split up the workflow in 3 main chunks following the triple diamond. And today we're going to talk specifically about prioritizing in between them or along the lines, because we all know that journeys are the ideal way that connects the dots from insight to implementation. So we're going to talk about prioritizing journeys, prioritizing opportunities, and prioritizing solutions. Now, for the product managers that are joining us today, we're not going to go into the nuts and bolts of prioritizing features and looking into how those processes should run. That's a different beast. We're going to look at how to prioritize across CX, product management, UX, and take your stakeholders along with you. I think those are the main topics. And we're going to look into the role of journeys to help you do this at scale. One of the things that we see organizations do a lot, and this probably is familiar to you, I don't know if some of you know Theresa Torres, there is a common way of structuring the opportunity and solution trees, like how all things are connected. But if you put journeys at the top and make sure that the customer's perspective from a journey-centric mindset is also taken into account, you can do magic. So on one end, you would have one place to capture the data with all the tools that you already use to measure and capture insights, but then one place to store them into your journeys where opportunities are created and to the solution efforts you're then using in your delivery tools, working with your product teams, with your marketing teams, with your operational teams, to actually execute on the things you think will move the needle on the customer experience. And once things are shipped, bring those back into your journeys. I think that is the summum of creating a journey-centric feedback loop and actually enable you to deliver the customer experience working as one. So maybe just to get things going and loosen up a little bit and see where you are today. Let's run a little poll. We talked about 3 times of prioritizing: journeys, opportunities, and solutions. And if you're not familiar with any of them, we'll get to it in a second. But just to gauge a little bit, I'm going to run one of the polls. What is actually the hardest part in your organization? And you'll see the poll popping up. So if you want to answer that, it will be fun to see, like, is it prioritizing which journeys to focus on? Is it about prioritizing opportunities, or is it about prioritizing solutions? And my guess is like prioritizing solutions, kind of like the nuts and crannies that we've done in product management, but the first 2 will be more important to us. So I'll just let everyone answer that. Like, I have 10 more seconds to answer. And
maybe maybe to add to that, prioritizing opportunities is also about like prioritizing what problems are we going to solve, right? As opposed to solutions is like, how are we going to solve those problems? So like slight difference there between the two.
Nice. Okay, so I'm gonna end the poll. If you didn't answer, that's also fine. You've got plenty of time to answer things in the Q&A, but lo and behold, I think if you all see the screen, prioritizing opportunities is the most important part. And well, we came prepared because that will be the meat of the discussion today. Kaspar, why don't you take us through what we've prepared? And again, if you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A and we'll see if we can answer them as we go. We're going to go very deep today. So here we go.
Yeah. Can everyone see my screen? That works? Okay.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Very interesting that you all agree that opportunities are the hardest part. And I actually I'm very happy that everyone does that, because it's also the most important part. You know, Einstein already said, or it's probably a quote that actually Einstein never said, but there's a great quote out there that says, if I were given 1 hour to save the planet, I would spend 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute resolving it. And that's true for any kind of innovation process as well. So it's very important to take a moment and actually think about, you know, what problems are we going to solve? Because in the end, the better you solve the problems that your customers have, the better their experience will be. So of course, that's why we have this possibility in TheyDo to create opportunities and to prioritize them as well. And there's a few tips regarding to this that are actually going to help you a lot to do that better. And the first of that is to define the opportunities clearly. So for those of you who've never maybe seen this, you know, you can of course define opportunities. You can link them to your journeys. And just to reiterate, you know, this is what a opportunity looks like. So for example, there's a little title that you can give, improve information overview. You can give some background on, you know, why did we define this one? What kind of customer feedback does it relate to? You can also see what journeys it's actually linked to. Well, this must be a pretty important one because there are many journeys where this opportunity has an impact. And there's some other things as well that are interesting to see here, especially like the value score. So you can actually score the opportunity, but as well as, link it to specific groups and taxonomy. So, you know, who's the owner of this opportunity, or what status is it in, or like what groups is it related to? You know, is it marketing? Is it product? Maybe both. So there's many ways to categorize and to capture those opportunities. But before we dive into all of that, let's just talk about what actually makes a good opportunity. And a lot of that actually comes down to the way you phrase them and the way you actually describe them. So let me just start with like a quick checklist you can use to better clearly define your opportunities. And the list looks as follows, and I'll just talk right through it. So first of all, phrase them that they finish the sentence, how might we? You know, the how might we technique is a very common technique in design thinking. And what it forces you to do is to come up with titles that lead to inspiring questions that you can actually solve and pick up in, for example, idea generation sessions. So try to always start your sentence with how might we, and also do a little test to see if, like, does this opportunity actually immediately generate lots of ideas? If it does, that's a very good point. Like, that probably means you have an interesting solution or opportunity to define. But there's more. And I'll just list a few solutions. So like, focus on the root cause. Like, for example, let's take a help desk process. You know, instead of saying reduce the number of calls, try to actually make it based on what the pain points are that your customers are experiencing. For example, talk to them, and maybe you'll learn that, hey, the pain point is they don't feel confident, and that's why they keep calling. So instead of reducing the number of calls, try to phrase it like, you know, make users feel more confident that they have all their needs. Something else you could do is, like, don't suggest solutions in it, because that really restricts the space for opportunity for solutions that you create. Because, for example, you know, use a chatbot to fill in taxes. Well, how might we do that? Yeah, create a chatbot. There's only one solution to that question. Whereas if you say, like, how might we help our customers fill in taxes? There's many different solutions there. Something else is define them broadly. So there's different levels that you can play with how broadly you define your opportunity. For example, you can make it very specific. So like, help users to check the work for mistakes. But you can also go all the way to the other side, like, improve the tax submission process, which is super broad. And the best opportunity definition lies probably a little bit in the middle, like not too specific, but also not too broad that everything could be a solution. So in this case, maybe try to, support users to efficiently draft the submission they're happy with. Could be like a nice in-between broadness of the formulation of the opportunity. And another tip is, just frame them positively. So instead of saying, make the return process of some product less difficult, say, make the return process more quick and intuitive. That generates more, positive vibe around it, of course, but also just promotes creativity in that way. Lastly, like MEC, some of you might already know it, but try to formulate your opportunities so that they're mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. So that means that together they cover all the important root problems, collectively exhaustive, but also that every opportunity is distinctly separate. This will not only, this will help you prioritize, because it's much easier to see like, yeah, they're really different from each other. So one will score different than the other. It also helps to create different solutions, and make sure that you cover all the root problems that you identified. And lastly, quickly check for duplicates. Like, do we have any duplicate opportunities already there? TheyDo is, of course, based on the idea that you, that you work together and that multiple teams can actually create opportunities and use them in each other's journeys. So they really become like the thing that stick through multiple journeys and multiple teams in the organization. So if there's already something out there, use it. And instead of, defining your own and keeping everything within your own team. Secondly, something that will really help you to prioritize better is create consistent scoring principles. So this is a question we often get, like how do we actually score things and how do we make sure that everyone in the organization scores opportunities consistently to each other? So let's start first, like let me explain quickly which criteria there are, for example, with opportunities. So you can rate opportunities on customer value, business value, and effort. And pretty much the same goes for solutions. It's called a little bit differently here, but here you can score solutions based on desirability, viability, and feasibility, which are pretty much different ways to explain, the same thing. And let's go to the criteria here and actually see what those mean. So what really helps here is to figure out as an organization, what do these criteria mean for us? Customer value, what is it? Is it emotional value, functional value, social value? Do we maybe include the target size in this estimation? The same goes for business value. Business value can be about cost reduction, like reducing help desk calls, but it can also be about revenue increase. Maybe an opportunity helps you promote to more customers than before. And can also be about risk. Some opportunities might actually carry some risk. Something might go wrong, some PR thing might go wrong, and you might actually lose money. There might be a little bit of risk. That is also business value. And lastly, of course, effort. It's not just about technical stuff, but it can also be about operational, like, can we shape the organization in a way that we can actually make this happen? Or is it legally allowed? So there's different things that you can use to score these criteria. And it really helps as an organization to sit together and figure out like, what do we actually mean with business value or customer value? And that will probably be different for every branch or different sectors. Something else that you can do to actually make the scoring of effort, for example, easier is to link it to solutions, because opportunities can still be very broadly defined. But once you link it to solutions, it becomes much more concrete. So here you can see like, this improved information overview might be hard to estimate how much effort something will actually take. But here you see, there's some concrete solutions. And when you estimate the effort, you can actually look at the solutions that are linked to an opportunity and just estimate like how difficult will these solutions actually be to implement. And actually, when you do that, the result could be something like this. This is HP, and they made like a scorecard where they pretty much just list down all the different criteria and how that influences their scoring. And of course, and in the future, we would love to actually implement a feature like this in TheyDo as well. But for now, you can already do a lot with just making scorecards like this. And maybe let's go to a poll. So I'm just very curious to learn more about what scoring systems you're actually using, you know? Is it desirability, viability, feasibility, like in TheyDo, or do you use maybe something else? So yeah, let's get the poll going and see, yeah, what the results will be here.
While everyone is answering, maybe like double clicking on the HP example, because I think it's very relevant for most of us in the organization. Kaspar, if you can like show it again on the screen.
Yeah.
This is where the nuance comes from, right? Like Kaspar shared, what it means for your organization can be different. And it can even change from quarter to quarter or year to year, like how you actually prioritize. So prioritizing opportunities, turning the customer problems into an opportunity for your business, for your specific business to solve, helps if you understand the different drivers and also the weight of those drivers. So here we see the customer and the business impact, like improve the customer experience, but it's a 50% weighted average, which means that the size of the financial impact, which can be a business driver, counts for 20% of this. And then ultimately this boils down to a single score, for a customer score, for a business score. And that will give you an idea of an opportunity and its weight. So we'll get into how it's linked to journeys in a second, but having a scorecard like this, as Kaspar mentioned, we have a few ideas of how to implement this in TheyDo and bringing your customized version of this into it, is something we see teams already do. And by having this underneath your opportunities, bringing that back to a customer value and a business value will allow you to communicate this in a very simple way. All right, so that said, let's end the poll and see how you guys are doing. So let me share the results.
Wow.
There you go.
So 52% says we take an educated guess. And 31% different system. Yeah, interesting. Well, what's interesting here to me is that, first of all, I think there's a lot of benefit to, you know, actually formalizing this and make sure that you do this consistently. So everyone who's doing educated guesses, of course, that makes sense. And if you do it with a lot of experts, which we'll touch on later, that could actually be a great way to do it. But still, making it consistent, doing everything in the same way will really help to also do things not just within your team, but, you know, across the whole organization, which is another point that we'll come across, because everyone will understand how other teams might have, you know, come to their conclusions as well.
Who is using a different system? Can someone just type or share in the Q&A like what kind of system they use? Anyone wants to elaborate on this? Curious to know what works for you. We'll learn from others. Definitely. Anyone? Just drop like hi in the Q&A and we'll give you the mic. Seeing if someone bites. Hang on. Maybe later. So if you have a different system, like please share and we'd love to hear. So if you have something, just drop it. Okay. Sometimes we use impact effort. Catherine, can I just give you, let me check you in this thing. Can I give you the mic and just elaborate a little bit on how you're actually doing this? Seeing if you can, if you unmute yourself. Hi, Catherine. You hear us?
Hi, Catherine.
You mean not clear, or the microphone maybe has changed to somewhere else? But either way, I think you hear me. So normally we also use this for solutions, not only for opportunities, but we are lacking like these dimensions of desirability, feasibility, and of course also the viability. So this is just a small way in getting like some sense out of the chaos in the jungle, which we normally have, and just a quick way to sort out like the gut feeling of this. Maybe also educated guesses, but it's a way in making this visual. So I really like it.
Yeah. Cool. So you're saying like feasibility, viability is more on the solution level, and then impact effort is on the opportunities. Did I get that right, or is it more messy than that?
It's more like a helping aid for us in any way. So also in the solution area, but also starting in the opportunities just to see if we think this is really driven by effort, or if this could have a huge impact somewhere on the opportunity range. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Like a little thingy I want to add here is we also included integrity here because, you know, you have desirability, feasibility, viability, of course, but integrity is also more and more actually becoming part of this estimation. So it's also something we might be considering for the future in TheyDo as well to add. Well, thanks for all your input. Let's continue with the next point. So, scorecards can really help, but another thing that can really help to make the estimations consistent is to score opportunities in relation to each other. Because then every opportunity that you score actually kind of becomes a benchmark for other opportunities to score. Because you can always start asking, is this opportunity or solution, by the way, it works both for opportunities and solutions. And you can always ask yourself, does this opportunity or solution actually have higher viability or desirability than the other ones that we already scored? So then all the opportunities that you score actually become benchmarks for each other. And I can show you this. You might have already seen this, but of course in TheyDo we have something very nifty for that, which is called the opportunity matrix. So, all the opportunities that you list show up in this overview. And if you go to matrix, you see all the same opportunities, but actually mapped according to their scores that they have. So in this view, you see customer value versus business value. And you can also actually select a different view, the total value, so the added customer and business value added together versus the effort that it takes to implement a opportunity. And these two views can really help you to, make this estimation and actually use the ones that you already have as a benchmark for the other ones. Because, for example, you see here improve information overview, scores really high, but you can maybe ask yourself, does it actually score higher than trial subscription or reducing the amount of deals? Or does it really have a higher customer value than supporting different languages or helping to compare options? That way you can actually make sure that they are well situated against each other. And this is something you can do in a session, you can just go over this overview and then look at the opportunities that you have and score them in relation to each other. Just by moving the slider, of course, here, you can then see that it changes. Maybe it's actually not that high customer value. Something else that's really important to mention here is that using filters and a good taxonomy in TheyDo really helps you to limit the scope to the opportunities that are relevant for you or your team. So what you can, of course, also do is that you can link all your opportunities to different groups or different types. So in this case, and it's also something we would recommend, you can, for example, define all your different teams or departments as groups and then link your opportunities to those groups so that when you, for example, have a opportunity prioritization session within marketing, you can simply just click on marketing and it will only show you the opportunities within marketing. Or when you're talking about, let's focus on the delighters. We really want to work on delighters. You can select the delighters that you have and see oh yeah, wait, there's 3 here. So that way, actually, and we call that the taxonomy. So the tag management system that you use also really helps to, filter and limit the scope to whatever is relevant for you in the moment. So let's go to the next point. Including experts and customers is also something we can really recommend. So when you start scoring, include experts from many different perspectives because, especially when it's about customer value, business value, and effort, it takes a lot of different disciplines to actually correctly estimate those factors. For example, customer value, you might want to include someone from customer support or a design researcher in that. Business value, you might want to have a financial analyst, or effort, you might want to have, a legal expert, a technical expert, you name it. So the more experts you include, the better you'll be able to estimate this. Also, something that's interesting here is to include multiple verticals. So not just do the scoring within your team, but actually try to move it across the organization and have multiple teams present or representatives of multiple teams. Because that way you'll be able to, not only focus within your own team, but actually as the whole organization prioritize what things are going to have the biggest impact for you. And lastly, include your customers. It might sound a bit daunting, but it's actually very easy to do. For example, send out a questionnaire where you just list your opportunities and let them sort them by priority. Which ones would they like to see first? Or maybe actually invite a few to your session. I've done that with with customers from many different walks of life. And it's always really fun, and you always learn something from their opinion on what you're doing there. So yeah, those are the 4 points for me, but there's 4 more. So let me hand it over to Jochem again.
Nice. Maybe a little poll in between before we move on. I'm curious, like scoring opportunities. That's one way of doing it, but when we look at prioritization across the board, how messy actually is it? Like, does your organization use a clear, standardized approach to prioritization? I mean, some maybe on the solution part, some maybe on the prioritization part, or even though it's messy, at least everyone does it the same way. Like, would you agree or fully agree or not agree? And maybe we can use this as a stepping stone for the next few things that we're gonna share, because finding opportunities clearly, creating consistent scoring principles, and then scoring opportunities between each other is a wonderful way of looking at specific opportunity prioritization in your organization, which by nature is across journeys and not only focusing on a specific feature or a specific channel that you're using, but you're taking them from journeys. So yeah, okay, nobody says fully agree. Okay, that's good. And most of us are like neutral. Someone disagree, someone agree. Anyone wants to share like a little insight into the process that you currently run and what is working on that? Natalie,
I cannot see the results yet.
Oh, I need to end. I'm sorry, it's like only me seeing it, right?
There we go. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So most of us, yeah, don't have this across the board. Maybe vertical teams have something that they use, but like using that across journeys is very, very important. Natalie, you mentioned in the Q&A, we use opportunity solution tree that matches company objective. So I count you in the somewhat agree bucket. Would you mind elaborating a little bit on what works for you and how you're currently doing that? Is that okay for you if I give you the mic? Let's see, Natalie, where are you? See if that works.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Welcome.
hi everyone. Yeah, so how our product team works at the moment is when actually we're into Q4 planning, so this is quite timely. That we all our work streams on our heads of work in different ways in terms of how to prioritize. They might do opportunity solution trees. They'll go through different ideation and discovery discussions to prioritize. A lot of it is based on complaints or what fires need to be kind of put out, which is quite a reactive way of doing it. And I think very much we've been depending on what complaints have been coming through or what customer success have been telling us that we need to change, which is not really the best way to do it. With TheyDo, I'm now going through that particular process right now. I've not got there yet, but I'm arriving there. And what I would like to do is to put everyone on TheyDo as a starting point to opportunity prioritization. But I don't want to kind of hold them to ransom to only use TheyDo. I'd love to say, okay, look at this matrix. This is great. This is what's happening in your particular work stream. Now take it and do what you want with it to kind of work on it more. And that's the kind of gist that the product team want to work. They want to don't be held ransom to TheyDo, but they want to kind of use it as an initial idea to help them guide their way further into exploration and prioritization. That's what I would say.
Oh, I love that a lot. I love that a lot. And also, that's the way we want to build as well. Just to give you a peek under the hood of how we do it at TheyDo is like, we run it as an empowered product team. So we don't want people to think about the features they need to ship, but really understand the customer problems in the context of our business. And I think that's what you're on to as well. Like, give them the directions and like, this is what we need as a business. This is what the customer wants. And then you are the expert in solving that problem. So run with it, right? That's basically what you're trying to achieve, if I get that right.
Yeah, that's correct, because then everyone goes off and do their different things. Like everyone's big fans of Teresa Torres, I think that's her name, and they kind of go into solution treeing and things like that. And they can explore how they want, but at least if it's all on TheyDo and they can use that as a starting point, I think that's a great consistency to apply across a team.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing, Nathalie. I'm going to give one more. Michelle, I don't know if you have the option to be with us in talking. I'm going to see if you can be. Hang on, where are you? Michelle is writing. She's working in a legacy organization, transforming into services and digital products. So that will be fun. Let me see if I can bring you up. Michelle, can you talk to us about how you're handling prioritization?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's like the standard COVID line. Can you hear me? Yes, so I just wanted to clarify because the poll didn't really have it was quite discreet. So I just wanted to say, you know, I somewhat disagree, but we're in transition, you know. So as I mentioned in the comment, there is a younger set of product leaders who want to bring in scorecards, who want to have some sort of system. But these things happen in pockets. So that's a big reason why I wanted to join, you know, these webinars as well, is to figure out, okay, if there's already a tool and TheyDo has a lot of these features, and how to actually scale them and help them sort of order the thinking, rather than it's having sort of like a born yesterday approach across different teams and here in R&D.
Fantastic. So we're exploring ways of actually doing this. And does it also make sense to split opportunities and solutions and then tie them to journeys? Is that where you are right now, or is that the bridge too far? Is that in development with the new team setting up?
So by legacy hardware, I mean like requirements. You know, they're really used to user requirements. So even still scaling, you know, the thinking of defining users as opposed to customers. How do we even first define the problem? And really just like detangling problem, opportunity, solution into a logical flow is where I think the organization is. So it's a bit of a process.
Amazing.
But,
yeah.
That sounds good. I love that you call it a flow, because that's exactly at least how it works in my mind, and probably yours as well, Jochem, that there's really, you want this flow from like the insights to opportunities to solutions to your backlog, and just have that flow as like with as little restrictions as possible, pretty much. That's basically what we're trying to do with TheyDo, indeed. Yeah.
And if you can do that with journeys at the center, not only specific feature or product team, but look at the whole, then you're setting yourselves up for success. Thanks for sharing, Michelle. I think that's a nice bridge to the second part of today, and some more examples, and hopefully let's bring some more Q&A. We just want to continue on the journey-centric prioritization, because now compared opportunities between each other, but the journey aspect, we talked about it a little bit, mentioned it as well. I think we should get Risa Torres on the show, Kaspar, at some point. It would be very fantastic to hear her, but she's also really focused on product management, or doing here as journey management, and taking that aspect in as well. And comparing journeys or comparing opportunities across journeys is useful for most of the teams that we work with, because you probably have 100, maybe 1,000, no, hundreds of journeys to focus on and understand, and it can really help to also know which journeys tie back into your company goals and which opportunities are then still relevant. And maybe that's handing over the baton from Kaspar to show you a few examples of that. Here we would look at our beloved telco environment, where we would see the awareness stage of the customer lifecycle. And there's a bunch of journeys that they've identified, mapped out. The data is there, and we know what the opportunities are inside these journeys. If you understand that you have an awareness problem as a brand, then it can be useful to look at the whole of all the journeys that play a part in the awareness stage, and not necessarily look into a specific journey or a specific customer experience you want to focus on, but look at, hey, we want to build some brand awareness. What are the opportunities that all our teams have identified? And if you have built those opportunities into your journeys, then you can start asking the question to TheyDo, say like, okay, so those opportunities specifically, what are those? Which means you get a subset of the journeys. You can again address the same things that we saw before. Look at the matrix view, look at how the customer and the business value is represented. But what I like personally is that and we talked about it earlier, is impact. And impact is basically nothing more than how much does it impact to the customer experience? And what better tools we have than the journey to express that. So the relative size of the opportunities is based on the amount of journey steps they impact. It's a very simple way actually of looking at it. And I'm sure there's reasons to have a more sophisticated way, like this is a very important journey, that's not an important journey, but just to get an idea of how many different journey steps a particular opportunity will impact if it is addressed, will also give you some more weight talking to stakeholders. They're like, sure, you want to focus on this opportunity for that and that reason, but I think this one is more important because it will actually improve the customer experience on a lot of different journeys. Maybe it's more nuanced and you need more effort to do that, but it can be very rewarding if you take the most impactful opportunities. So that is one thing I really like about connecting your opportunities to your journeys and across journeys. To give an example, like if you're working in a bank and there's something wrong with creating an account that will affect your mortgages journey or customer experience, it will affect your personal banking, it will basically affect the whole. So if there's an opportunity for innovation there, well, if it's not working, you better bug fix. But if there's an opportunity for innovation, the impact will be tremendous versus a specific journey that your team might be focused on. So if you can use the journeys, in this case, it's the stage of the customer experience, to look at the opportunities as a whole, you will also have a different dimension in looking at it. But what is also useful is just create a simple project board where you have set up a specific set of criteria for journeys to compare. And then you can just add, example, a few journeys that you think are the ones that are part of this customer experience that you actually want to look at the opportunities. So I'm now adding a bunch of journeys that you think are relevant to solving a particular problem. And then again, there's 5 opportunities. So let's see, we're going to pull them in. So creating these little projects for your next quarter goals can also be a very effective way of comparing the opportunities from specific journeys in the context of something, a project or a business goal. And I think that ties into comparing opportunities in relation to journeys. But to company goals, and I think Natalie, you mentioned it, like we have solution opportunity trees that matches company objectives. That is also something that I see a lot of our users actually pull off. Like most of us have quarterly set targets. And that is another way of doing it. So we use groups to see who has the budget to address an opportunity. But you can equally say, like, we have an OKR, very simplified way, of course, but we have an OKR this quarter as a team to focus on. And there's like 5 opportunities that we know, 4 opportunities that we know that are actually supposed to be addressing that OKR. All right, now we can start talking. And by actually doing it this way, here you go, you've grouped the opportunities against the company's strategic objective. You can have that discussion with stakeholders. Say, hey, based on all these journeys, all the insights, all those customer feedback we got, these are the 4 opportunities that are, what we think, best addressed or best suitable to find solutions for to fit our OKRs for this quarter. So by having opportunities as your pocket money almost, between journeys, between company goals, between strategies almost, will allow you to be flexible in linking them to your team's work and across your teams. So that is one other way of comparing opportunities in relation to company goals. So one more is actually linking the opportunities to journey steps to revealing impact. And I talked about it, but I'll show you quickly like what I meant with that. I only showed you the concept by saying, hey, this opportunity is important because it impacts the customer journey the most. But it also means that you can look at it from a different perspective, because it can be that you're working on a specific journey, like, okay, we have this awareness problem and we're looking at the orientation journey for people doing this online. I don't know, buying a new mobile phone. So here we know there are some new insights that we've gathered in our research, and I won't go into the details of capturing those little insights, but it can be that in the decision-making step, we've identified that there's also the opportunity of improving the information overload that's relevant. So by linking, again, opportunities that are already existent, maybe in different journeys or different teams, you'll increase the size of the impact for that opportunity. So if you know that other teams have identified an opportunity and are not sure if it's important or not, but in the journeys that you focus on, it is. By cross-linking that, it will give more weight to the opportunity. That's another way of doing it. I really like that teams are picking that up and like creating that cross-reference. All right. And then I think it ties into the last two, which are more solution-oriented. We focused 6 ideas on prioritizing opportunities. And I think we're now moving to the solution work. As mentioned already, it's like for the teams to figure out the best solutions. But if you let them go and do their own thing and don't create that feedback loop, you'll never know if the customer experience is impacted and if you actually achieve the goals. So this is the fragmentation that happens in a lot of organizations. We're really specific on a feature, but maybe not in line with how we actually see and maintain the bigger picture. So how are we looking at that? And I think that is where the solutions come in. So back to the journey. If we have an opportunity, let me go and pull up the ones from Kaspar. What you actually want to do is look into the solution effort it takes to build this opportunity. And this is where prioritizing the backlog comes in. So let's say we've agreed, let's say this opportunity is part of the strategic objective for this quarter. What you then want to do is look into the solution space and bring in the knowledge of the teams. And it can be 2 ways of doing this. One is you go out and figure it out on your own, new solutions, new ideas, you're going to validate, you're going to experiment. That can be a way of doing it. Or it can be like, hey, are we already having plans to create new content, new features, maybe new value propositions for specifically addressing this opportunity? And that is where solution tracking comes in. And let me just take the improve information overview and then look at the unlimited everywhere solution, right? Wonderful solution. I think some telcos have already implemented this, and this is not invented by us. But let's say there is a solution initiative running that is focusing on unlimited everywhere that addresses this opportunity. Now, some teams will say, let's put this on the backlog, and we are responsible for creating that epic, if you will, on the roadmap. In other cases, it will be there is already something going on in product team. So here you will see, and I'm going to unlink this for specific purposes, but we've set this up with JIRA just as an example. Use your favorite product management tool in your organization as a reference point. But by linking it, you can say, okay, let's take the project or the team that should be working on it. Let's define it as an epic or a task. And then if this is the workflow that you have, let's push it and let's create that epic. So now you've created the link, and if you have TheyDo and JIRA, for instance, set up, you will also be able to track this in JIRA. So this will get picked up by the product team. There will be tasks, issues, stories. There will be parts of the roadmap. And once this is actually fully implemented, automatically the system will be in sync. So there will be a notification back to TheyDo. The status will change into set live. And everyone involved in the journey where the problem arrives from, the opportunity that you created, and then the solution effort that was taken will be notified and knows, hey, okay, so we've actually implemented the solution. Now let's see if the customer experience changes. So that is one of the ways to keep your backlog in sync. And this will require some nuanced discussions with your product managers, with your product teams. Like, how do we want this to work? And how do we want to bring in what we already have? Because you can also say, hey, let's just link it to things that you already have and find that epic that this actually addresses. Oh, there's the unlimited epic and limited everywhere epic, right? You can just link it and we sync it. So we bring in the data from, let's say, JIRA back to TheyDo. It can also be a way of doing it, and take small steps. You don't need to do everything, but using the solution part of it, link it to opportunities, will allow you to sync both. All right, I hope that was clear. So aim for a sync backlog, because opportunities by nature are cross-functional and solutions can be specific for a part of your organization. And backlog doesn't mean feature backlog. It can also mean roadmap for your marketing teams or your operational teams, or maybe even sales teams that want to change their process. And by tracking them, and I combined a little bit, you will be able to create that feedback loop. So having that in place syncing it back to your journeys will also make your opportunity and solution links more relevant, because you will know what impacts what and who's working on what. Or as they do, where we're not doing things that we are supposed to do in line with our company goals. So those are a few things to look into when you're doing solution prioritization. And again, we're not going into RISE frameworks or really understanding the impact of specific solutions. I think that is wonderful that teams have systems for that. But tracking that in line with your journey management, that is, I think, where most visible impact can be made in an organization. All right. We have a little bonus to end today, and then we can answer a few more questions in the QA. I think, Natalie, you mentioned there are some conflicts between TheyDo's approach and Teresa's storage solution opportunity tree. Love to hear about them. Does anyone else have questions? Now's your chance to drop them in, and then maybe we'll take the last few minutes to tell a little bit about what is ahead in TheyDo and how we're also closing the feedback loop entirely. I think this is very cool. We got this prototype from our design team just now, from our product team. I want to show you a few things. So if you would allow me, I'm going to show you what we will actually help you achieve, because if you do this right, you will also need your transactional and your relational metrics in line with what you're achieving. And then you can answer the question, what really impacts what? So I'm now in a journey. As you can see, there's a sneak peek into what we aim to build. But as we're in a journey, you have a lot of steps. And on those steps, specific metrics can be done and are actually done. So here you would see we're introducing a metrics layer, so you can have some data in your journeys. But what I like most, and I'll show you quickly, is like you have important metrics on top of your journey. Let me see. If you want to, for instance, have an NPS that tracks an entire journey, or there's either a survey or there's a sentiment score, and you can say NPS or a customer effort score, whatever is the most important for you. You can actually use that by integrating your favorite data source, be it Qualtrics, Medallia, Hello Customer, or maybe something that you run in your company. And then start asking questions to data. Say like, okay, show me the journeys that have an NPS that is, I don't know, between -100 and 0, negative NPS. And what are then the opportunities that we actually have identified? And who's working on what? So by integrating these metrics, you can start answering these questions. And then the next stage will be getting that feedback loop once solutions are implemented that address these opportunities that tie back into the NPS. You can create a complete feedback loop around your journeys. And that will be one of the focus points for our team moving forward, is solving the hardest problems around creating that feedback loop. So this was a little sneak peek for everyone to enjoy. And if you have questions on that, let us know. And if you want to contribute, also let us know, because we will be taking your opinions and needs very seriously in developing this solution. This is just an idea, early prototype, but you can expect some early integrations this cycle. So that will be fun. All right, Nathalie Salas, I have a question. I'm going to go back to you, and then I'm gonna hand it over to you. Let me see if I can find you, and then you can ask your question. Participants, and Nathalie, there you go, allowed to talk. Bring it on.
Hi, Jochem, thanks again. This is quite timely, actually, because today I had a meeting in terms of how we can define metrics across unified journeys across the entire life cycle. And that was the bit I was stumbling on when I was trying to explain TheyDo. And because there's no, at the moment, it's just kind of very manual. Like I'll create a swim lane and just say, this is the metric that we've got in this particular step. But I know this is still kind of early in the design process, but are you linking this through other tools, or are you, how are you envisaging this?
So this is what we think about it, and then we can talk. So our starting point was like, let's help everyone who's like having journeys all over the place centralize that. That's why the journey framework and workflow comes in, and the opportunity solution tree. That is what we've built so far. And now the question is, how do we get the rest of the organization to plug into that so that we can actually align together? First step, product management tools, JIRA, DevOps, the ones that we mentioned, like make sure that the backlog can also sync with the efforts that you're doing in journey management. And now we're moving into the left, and there you would have your data sources. So we're making a distinction between CX metrics, which can be captured in a variety of tools like Qualtrics or Medallia, the ones I mentioned. We're looking into voice of customer programs that maybe are in Zendesk or maybe used by Salesforce, where also transactional metrics like data around how much people actually call in a particular step to our support center and what kind of questions are they asking, how satisfied are they by the way we answer them. Those type of data will flow into your journeys, and we're integrating basically one by one. We keep literally a score list of what are the most important ones to you, which are we going to do first, which are we going to do next, and we're ramping up our team to basically make sure that the whole technology stack in the modern enterprise will fit into your journey management. You have a particular one that you like to see?
Yeah, well, definitely Salesforce, because we're actually discovering the sales and marketing funnels, and everything comes from this. Will come. A lot of stuff will come from Salesforce and Google Analytics. But then after that, we use PlanHat for our CS teams. So I'm not sure whether that's a tool that's coming to your radar at all.
Yes, actually, we've evaluated for data, so I know PlanHat very well.
Because we actually run our NPS and CSATs from PlanHat.
Awesome. So bringing those metrics in, assuming they have a good API, that is something that we need to look into, will be a matter of, hey, we have a setup for getting your different CX metrics in, and then what API source are you going to provide data with? So yes, I'll plus one that for you right now. And
another one.
Yeah.
And another one is a Mixpanel.
Mixpanel, yeah, for data analytics specifically on your usage data.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So as you see, this is just a subset of them. To do this right, there are so many use cases, there are so many different tools, and we standardize the way you have CX data, transactional metrics, and then you have your product management, or in that case, creative tools like Figma actually work, and then bring the service layers of those in line with your journey management. That's the aim we take here. Thanks, Natalie. I'm going to give one more welcome. Thanks for your good questions. I'm going to give Wolfgang Rispler, hope if I have that right, allowed to talk. You raised your hand. Wolfgang, you want to ask us a question or contribute to the conversation?
Sorry, I didn't realize that I raised the hand. It was by mistake, sorry.
Oh, no worries. All right. So let's see. Reiner, I'm going to give it over to you. So let me just give Reiner the stage, allowing you to talk. Not sure if you can. Reiner, can we connect? Reinier, excuse me.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, that's Reinier indeed. So I think we're struggling with something similar, where we have two departments kind of working on the journeys, customer experience working from a top-down view, very strategy driven, and the user experience team very user-focused, looking at the current journey, looking at the pain points, and then working up. And the thing we're struggling right now is that our CX team has pretty much has a reporting job, I would say, like kind of. So they have to manage a lot of stakeholders, and those stakeholders really want to see, okay, what's the NPS, where can we strive to improve, and they kind of struggle with how that would work right now. Looking at this prototype, I guess this would already be of big help, but really integrating NPS down to insights, I'm kind of wondering how I would see that working.
Kaspar, I want to take a stab at that. I noticed that I'm taking all the answers, but it's something you know by heart as well.
Well, I think what's really interesting in this is that, this is actually, as far as I know, the first sort of solution that will help, people like you to actually, both see the NPS, both see the metrics, but also be able to explain them. because that's usually where, where there's a sort of divide. You have the data scientists on one hand that know all the data, they know all the metrics. And then you have the people that actually talk to customers that know, like, the more qualitative insights. But it's always hard to match them together. And this is sort of a first stab at actually being able to, see what are our NPS scores, and also why are they like that? Because you need both to actually prioritize as well. If you want to prioritize, you have to know, okay, how bad is the problem? So NPS is like a good metric for that, like an objective, pretty objective metric. But you also need to know, like, if we want to improve it, we have to know what the real problem is. So the insights help you to actually answer that question, and will also help you to prioritize the solutions and the opportunities that actually might have the biggest impact. So for prioritization, that will also really help to have both of those types of data in one spot like this. If that actually answers your question a little bit.
I muted you because I had some background
Oh, yeah.
noise. See?
Yeah, I'm in the office. It's noisy here. No, that actually does answer my question.
Awesome. All right. So let's go to the end of today. I mean, we covered a lot of ground. You will get the recording for sure. We can also share the document that we use as a little talking points for ourselves. If you, like Natalie or Veer or anyone who is working on this right now, shall have specific needs and have questions, we will be launching the TheyDo community. And what we're going to do there, and it's already in an MVP stage, is there's a lot of people who have the same problems like you have. And some have solved them, others are working on solving them, and what works for them might work for you. So who are we to say what might be the best way to do this than people who have actually solved this in their business using tooling like TheyDo? So this is what we're going to launch, and you can be part of this. So it's going to be next week. And if you want, I'll drop the invite into the chat. You can set a date in your calendar because this is going to be fun for everyone. Let me see if I message everyone together. Yes, everyone. Here's the link. So if you want to join us, join the community, learn from journey managers across the globe. And I mean, we have people from Atlassian, Cisco, PostNL in the Netherlands. We have people from all over the globe, even agencies or global consulting firms joining us here. Next week, we'll launch it. You're going to be part of it. We're going to explain whatever we are going to do, and we're planning for it, and have you contribute. Just wanted to drop that. And by that, I want to thank everyone for your questions, for your engagement. Thank you, Kaspar, for sharing all your little tips and tricks. And I'm sure you have some more that we didn't cover.
You're welcome.
All
Also
right.
good to mention, many of the tips that I just gave are also written out in much detail in our guide section. So if you want to, have a little look at that, see what we mentioned here today, feel free to go there and just take it at your own pace and go through that. There's a lot of stuff there that might help you.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Redefining Journey Management, and see you again next time, perhaps next week. Have a good evening, afternoon, or night for some, and see you later.
See you later, everyone.